we're going to be talking this morning about how it feels to use Google Glass, what this technology is capable of, what the current applications are, and then a little bit of a look into what the future implications of this sort of technology are. To start off, we're going to just show a brief video so that everyone can see just a quick introduction into what Google Glass looks like from a user's perspective.
Yeah. Oh, we don't have audio up there. We don't have audio.
Okay, Glass, record a video.
This is it. We're on in 2 minutes.
Okay, Glass, hang out with the Flying Club.
Google photos of tiger heads. You ready? You ready?
Right there. Okay, Glass, take a picture.
That is awesome.
Okay, Glass, record a video.
After this bridge, first exit.
Cool. Stay delicious and hot.
Arroy.
Alroy.
Google jellyfish.
Well, let's see. It's beautiful.
Some quick thinking there, I think.
Nice work. So as you can see in the video, these devices are a first-person camera, internet connection, a variety of things, but we're going to ask our panelists, because both Josh and Mike are in the Glass Explorer program, what's the most useful thing for this, and how do people react when they first see you wearing this? Do you want to start, Josh?
Yeah, sure. I think kind of Mike and I had a chance to talk with our friends at Google before we had this panel, kind of set up some talking points. So the first one obviously is how it feels to wear glass. I think that's a lot of times, I know like when I walk in the room, the audio guys in the back, they all want to try it on and everything like that. But really you come across two things as a primary like first reaction. People are either like, are you recording me? Or can I try it on? Those are like the two things that I get asked every time I go out somewhere with them on. And I can ask the second part of it, answer the second part of it better than the first, I think, is that, yes, I'm recording you, always. No, not really. When you record people, this thing comes on, and you can actually see what you're recording. So, it's pretty obvious, like if I tap the side, and you can kind of see that this is illuminated now. No, there's no red light or anything like that, but again, I don't think it's really necessary. The second thing is, can you try them on? Yes, you can try them on. I always let people try them on because we're part of the Explorer program, and what that means is that we're trying on these devices and going out into the world and letting other people experience them, and we're trying to get a feel and give Google feedback on exactly what can make the technology better, how the device maybe should shape out in the long run. Should it look different, that kind of thing. So I think when you wear it, it's just like people don't know what to make of it, and you have to be prepared for that. But at the same time, I get to be a cyborg, and I get access to a whole bunch of information. I get to take pictures of my daughter and my dog without taking my hands off of interacting with my daughter or my dog. I get to record myself riding the Hulk. Any of you want to hold your iPhones out, or Nexuses, which is the better option, in front of you, while you're riding the Hulk? I don't think so. I wouldn't want to hold my Nexus out, but this stays on my head the whole time. And I had this really cool first-person video of my life and what I'm seeing. So the way that I use it is just that. It's cataloging my life and having instant access to information without needing to distract myself from the task at hand.
A lot of what I've used it for is maybe not as much as the taking pictures as what Josh uses it for, because he does a lot more going out, a lot more neater things. I do a lot of moving around, though. I do a lot of driving. It's very useful for, there's a lot of states even that it's illegal to text while driving and pulling out your phone and holding it, and it's unsafe and you shouldn't do it anyway. So being able to just say, okay, glass, send a message to, and give them their name, and then say your message, and you never take your hands off the wheel, you never have to look away from the road, you never have to do anything of that sort. That's usually what I use it for. It's also really good for, it's got a little earbud so you can hear a little bit better, and use it for making phone calls a lot as well. So I don't use it as much for pictures and video as Josh does. I use it more for the utility of texting and phone calls. And I got another microphone. I'm popular today. What's up?
So what you're saying, though, is like, let's take driving, for example, or, the privacy thing we'll get into. But are you saying to people that are concerned about texting while driving, it's better because I have a display in front of my face while I'm driving? Like, how does it feel safe?
You don't actually have to look at the display while you're doing this. I know if I look up and I can see if it lights up, I don't even need to see what's actually on the screen. I just know the very first screen I come to is a screen where you can say, okay, glass. You get a command. I can say, okay, glass. It gives me a little beep. I say send a message to. It gives me another beep. Every time I do a command, it issues a beep. I know the order. I've been using it enough that you don't actually have to look at what you're doing. So, it's safer that you don't even have to take your eyes off the road. You don't have to get what. Hey, that one works now.
Your mic?
You don't actually have to look at what you're doing. Oh, that's really loud. You have to look at what you're doing. We're really technical people here.
Give people a sense of what it's like to use this, though. Is it like having a second rearview mirror? Is it can you see through it, through the display?
That's a good point. In the video, I know we don't have it up, but there's always that little box on the top right. And when you wear glass the first time, it's really weird. And if you can catch me around and about, I'll let you try it on. But basically, the way that they describe it and the way that I would describe it is it looks like you're looking at a TV about 5 feet in front of you and up and to the right. So it's kind of like that. Like if you guys all look at me and you kind of see the TV off in your peripheral, you have to actually focus on it before you can actually see what's on it, right? So it's just like that. It's not like it's directly in front of my face. I don't feel like I'm running into my screen. If I was to imagine it, I would be walking underneath it and it would go over my right shoulder. That's kind of how it looks when you're using it. And I think that's a good point, is that during normal day-to-day things, even if someone were to text me while driving, yeah, it would show up, but it doesn't, my field of vision is underneath it. So it doesn't actually provide a distraction. And once you do get used to the voice commands, it just becomes kind of seamless. You find yourself glancing every once in a while, just like you would in a rearview mirror, where, that's not safe. In fact, you're supposed to do that to find out if there's a car behind you. And you are taking, just for a moment, your eyes off the road to see what's around you. That said, just like with any other technology, I think Bluetooth headsets were a concern. It's illegal to drive with even headsets in your ears. You can't. There's a lot of things that you can't do. So it's one of those things, and with any technology, it's be responsible while driving. And there are a lot of applications and potential applications for it where it actually would make even driving safer. For instance, those of us who don't have self-control, that have to check that text message on our phone, which is very dangerous. Don't do it. Having that option, if you have to get a quick glimpse of it, I wouldn't recommend it. But there's also opportunity for apps. So if there's any developers in the room, there's apps for cell phones that lock down that functionality while you're driving. There's no reason you can't have an app for a glass that would lock it down while you're driving, or an app that would be a second eye. Let's say you're driving and you're a little bit tired, which you also should not do. It kind of beeps in your ear.
But glass actually will read you a text message, correct? It's not just going to beep?
The text messaging app as it is now shows you the text, but there is a voice command that'll have you read the text. It'll read the text auditory. to you. And there's two different options. Like Mike said, this is actually the version 2 of the Google Glass. The first version only had a bone conducting speaker in it, and what that means is it actually doesn't have like an auditory speaker thing. It's a vibration, so it actually vibrates.
Take it off and show people, because I don't think they can see behind your head.
This
So-
little thing right here. Where
Yeah.
it's actually a little, it looks like a button that says glass on it. It's actually, it vibrates, and that's the actual bone conducting speaker.
So it actually vibrates your head and makes you hear things, and it vibrates the air around it, so you can actually hear it when it's off. But there's also now with this version an earpiece and a stereo earpiece that you can plug in like earbuds for a better sound. This one is great though for convenience. Actually, do you have the earpiece in? He has the earpiece in right here actually, so that's pretty cool. You want to talk? I almost saw that in the light. So this is the earpiece here. I'm not going to put it in my ear because I don't know where he's been, but basically it just plugs in, and then this part goes in your ear like an earbud, and there's also a stereo version of that. And what's nice about this is like Google Glass now has integration with a lot of popular apps like Google Music, where I can actually listen to my songs through Bluetooth stereo headset from my phone streaming off the cloud, and that kind of thing. So, again, just one more thing that you're abstracting from having to take your phone out and that kind of thing.
So now I want to talk a little bit about uses in specific areas, and for our audience, I think gaming and music would make sense. So let's take a look at one music professional that's doing some interesting things with Google Glass. This is Young Guru.
I'm Young Guru. I'm a record producer, engineer, and DJ. I've worked with some of the biggest names in hip-hop. That's why I'm into being a glass explorer. I mean, I already explore all the sounds around me, technologies, collaborations, traveling.
¿Gusta ordenar ahorita o necesita un poquito de tiempo?
How do you say, what's the best thing on the menu in Spanish? ¿Cuál es la mejor cosa en el menú? What song is this? Oh, that's hot. My brain pinballs all the sounds and noises, and that's how the music is born. Okay, Glass, send a message to Endo. I need you to find this record for me, El Rey de las Galletas. Okay, Glass, listen to El Rey de las Galletas. El Rey de las Galletas, los sonidos ultracortos. El Rey de las Galletas, ese soy yo. El Rey de las Galletas. I've been known to spend hours digging through crates of albums looking for that one magical moment that I can build an entire song around. Thank you, brother. And it all leads up to this. This is my get down time. Yo! I'm Young Guru, innovator, risk taker, geek, and consummate explorer.
So that gets back to what I was saying about with Google Music. It plugs right in, so I don't have to take my phone out. And that, for those of you who have iPhones, the same thing as iTunes, more or less. It's cloud-based music application that's better in every way. So I just like to stab Joe with all the pro Google.
Yeah, Josh is not a paid Google representative.
No.
He just likes to act like that.
What I like about that video, though, is it shows you when where we sit every day, we're in a development world, right? So we're looking at code, we're building apps, we're teaching other people how to build code oftentimes. So we look at okay, how do I make an app? With wearable computing, though, I think a lot of it is how is an app worn? Like, how does it change somebody? How does it change what you can do? And it goes back to what I was saying about how I use it out and about with my family. I can record. I find myself recording and taking pictures far more than I ever had in the past, when it just wasn't worth it for me to take my phone out of my pocket, or not possible for me to take my phone out of my pocket. So I'm able to do a lot of that kind of thing. And I'm always trying, when I wear mine out and about, I'm always trying to think of things like this. It's like, okay, well, who is going to be using it and why, and how can it affect them? And wearable computing just has those kind of options. Like, there's no way that guy would have taken out his phone and Googled, or whatever, translated what's the best thing on the menu. It's just, it's more seamless. Technology is more seamless. I think that's the important takeaway from something like that.
So take us through how you would put together an app, or at least an app idea. Somebody in the audience has a good idea after seeing that video and says, it would be cool if it did this. How would they create what that looks like? Just Photoshop it up, or are there tools available yet, or where is it in that stage?
Well, before they even get to that, I would recommend they wear the unit around for a while. I know before I got mine, I had a couple ideas. It's like, oh, I can make Google Glass do this with the camera, and I can make it do this on this little screen and have the touchpad. And after you wear it for a couple months and you realize how you actually use it on a day-to-day basis, it's not the same as what you think before you ever have one. I mean, you'll get it with one intention, and then you'll actually use it in a completely different way. So before you ever even start mocking up an app or start writing down all these ideas, use it for a while, learn how you use it in your daily life, and then think of ways that it could complement what you're already doing, ways that it can complement things that you already do in your daily life. Because that's the thing, is it's supposed to be a complement to what you already do, not I need to make an app to go and do this new thing. It's how can I do something better with something that I'm wearing. So
Yeah, it's a layer of enhancement. And I think I remember my very first day of college, a long time ago. The person sitting next to me
Had just killed a dinosaur.
had a mouse. They picked up their mouse. I'll pretend this is a mouse for a second. They picked up their mouse and was trying to move it on the screen in the air like this. And they're like, why isn't this working? Using a mouse, to you guys and the younger generation, people just now, my daughter, 6, uses a mouse every day. It's like nobody even thinks about it. So a lot of what I think we're coming into now is just people getting used to different control mechanisms. People getting used to, okay, I can use my eye to navigate. I can use my voice to navigate. Touchscreens didn't exist 10 years ago. So it's like a lot of things that we take for granted and we're used to now, people thought were bizarre even 10 years ago. We got gamers in the room. How many gamers do we have here? A couple?
Imagine that.
All right, show of hands. Who uses inverted aiming?
you're all doing it wrong.
Yeah. No, they're not. No, those are the only right people in the room. I find that a lot, that like people that grew up with games earlier, that played games older, everything was inverted because it was all based off flight sims, and the engineers that were making the games are the guys that were doing those kind of things. So, the new gamers, they grew up, and the default now is, you actually move the thing up to go up, which is completely backwards to me. So whenever I go over to a party and people are playing Xbox or PlayStation, whatever, I always have to go in and switch the controller, and then I die for the first 3 minutes while I'm changing the setting. But that just goes to what I'm saying, is that when you learn to use something, it's ingrained in you, and there's this change. So when you're using Google Glass every day, you have to get used to what kind of controls that opens up for you that you might not be used to from what you've been experiencing your whole lives.
Talk a little bit about the limitations of the product between now and when everyone in the room will have one. What does this need? What did you find lacking in the early units? Because you guys are explorers, you're supposed to be helping Google with that sort of feedback. What feedback did you have for Google?
I know one of the feedback I actually posted for the My Glass forums, where they actually allow you to give feedback right to Google, was actually the design of the device. I see there's a bunch of people in here. You've got hats on. I don't have a ball cap on all the time, and I pull it down real low, and I find that the camera actually catches the corner of my cap in the picture like all the time. I have to like lift my hat up or like look down when I want to take a picture with it, so that I don't get the corner of my hat in there. So slight design changes, I think, to make it not intrusive, or so that your other clothing doesn't intrude on the usage of glass, would be one main thing they'd have to do.
Limitations for me are kind of twofold. There's a developer side right now, and a lot of that is based on privacy concerns, which we haven't really got to yet. But Google does not allow facial recognition in Google Glass right now. It's like one of the limitations that they put on developers in the SDK. So, like a lot of cool app ideas I have. Like for instance, right now, if I just wanted to take a picture and find out, like go through Full Sail and say these are the people that were attending, like that would be cool for me, or I could just send you all a message or an email or something like that. I can't do that because I can't facial recognize you with the software. So there are certain limitations like that in the App Store you can't charge for apps. So you have a lot of kind of stifling right now of people that are maybe entrepreneurial that want to make an app, but they also want to profit off of it a little bit. So a lot of the app development that's going on now are people trying to get like that their services are subscriber based, like Facebook or Gmail or stuff like that. Is where people signing up for the service is actually how they make their money. So I think until there's an actual market where you can go and you can upload an app and pay for an app and install the apps and that kind of thing, there's going to be a little bit of limitation on that side. So that's the developer side. And then on the use side, the limitations are just what I was talking about earlier. Is just people aren't used to the control mechanisms. Is how do I use this? This is a touch screen, like over here. So when I swipe through these cards, and it uses this card GUI that I swipe through and see a text message. I told my wife that Rob Schneider was going to be here, and then she was like, "What?" And that's right there. That's a limitation in that I'd still have to use my hand, right? I can't go to that card right now with any other kind of navigation. Now there are headlock navigations and that kind of stuff, and they just opened up the blink and wink and all these kind of things I can do with my eye to control it. But those kind of things are still coming out. Is exactly how people are going to interact with the device itself in the long term. What reliance it'll have with the phone and that kind of thing.
So we haven't talked about privacy. You just mentioned that it would be nice to facial recognize everyone in this room, and there was probably at least 3 or 4 people that found that kind of weird.
There were at least 3 or 4 people that found Facebook kind of weird when it was released too.
Well, I mean, fair enough, but talk about your experience with some people at various places that
he's trying to get me to share my
Google
story
Glass
about getting
with
kicked out of ITSEC.
Yes, Josh was actually kicked out of a conference, but it is instructive of how people would react. So tell that story of when people have been concerned about privacy and
the men's
and
room,
how that goes.
Yeah, don't wear this in the bathroom. It's a little weird.
Truthfully, though, it doesn't fold up, right? So the device is a titanium frame, right? So it's a little bit more sturdy than people make it out to be. And the reason it's a titanium frame is so that it fits well on your head and it holds your head instead of like all the weight being on your nose and everything like that. The unfortunate drawback to that is there's no easy way to like put it in your pocket. So if you have to go, you have to go. It's like, what do you do with your glass? Do you find some random stranger here? Here's my really expensive piece of hardware. Will you hold that for me? So, you do one of the, like the first couple of times you do this weird, like, I'm going to try and tuck it in my shirt kind of a thing. And then eventually you just start wearing it and you're like, I'm going to get hit in the head one day, but it's worth it. I think it goes back to the whole Facebook comment though, for real, is that people, when new technology comes out, people are never okay with it. And the funny thing is that ITSEC story, I got kicked out of the IT, whatever it is, conference down in Orlando. I'm mad at them. But there's thousands of people in this convention center with their iPhones and their Androids and everything like that, and their smartphones. There's probably 1 or 2 guys with Blackberries, and they're out there like taking pictures of everything, like with their phones. And I'm the guy that kicks out. And I'm like, if I'm a spy or I'm going to try and smuggle information, the last way I'm going to do it is with a giant piece of hardware on my head, like where it's like plain view. So I think a lot of it's just people not understanding what it does or how it works. People just generally being afraid of new technology. When the Bluetooth headsets first started coming out, people were getting kicked out of theaters and stuff because people didn't know what it was. And I think a lot of it's just education. People getting, with technology and Big Brother, you can be conspiracy theoried all you want, but how many people in here have a Facebook account? How many people don't have a Facebook account? Because I just don't want to count them. Like, right. So 3.
Officially, I have one.
So 3. And I resisted it for a long time. And my wife created a Facebook account for me so that she could marry me on Facebook. That's how it worked. And so now I use it.
People made a big stink about Facebook, what was it, like 3 years ago now, that they bought facial recognition technology so that when you post a picture to Facebook, it automatically recognizes who's in. It's like, hey, do you want to tag this person on this little section where we know exactly where their face is? And everybody thought that was weird. I mean, how much do you even hear about that anymore?
Yeah.
It's just become like, oh, it's just now a feature that we expect. But if Glass were to do it, it's like, oh, well, that's on your face, so it's different.
You saw it in Batman. They can already,
But
3D
is
map
it different?
everything.
I mean, I think that's the part of this that we're not. Is it different though? Is it just too in your face that you're like, I'm trying to talk to you and you're actually interacting with Glass? Like, you just did it to me in the hallway. I don't know if you realized it. We were talking and you're talking to your Glass, and I thought you were talking to me. At some point, does it cross into because it's wearables? Is it going to be an even longer time? Like Facebook, when you close your browser or you close your phone, it goes away. You don't really, it's not in day-to-day life.
The internet.
When it gets into wearables, does it change how people react to it?
I think it goes back to the whole Bluetooth headset thing. The first 300 times I saw somebody talking to themselves on a Bluetooth headset, I thought it was really weird. I'm like, what is that guy doing? No, I don't want to have lunch with you. What? Oh, right, you're on a Bluetooth headset. And I think it's just something people get used to. I think because there's so few of us, I think there's only about 30,000-ish, maybe up to 50,000-ish people with Explorers right now. I mean, it's not a lot of us that have it. People just aren't used to it. And I think you're going to start to see other vendors. You're going to see Samsung. You're going to see Apple with some kind of watch that has a camera in it. In a way, I think it's actually less of an invasion because it's like you're so obtuse with it. It's right here on my head. I'm not hiding it from you. You know it's there. There's cameras that fit in lapel pins. There's been cameras that hook onto glasses for a long time, just none with the interactive capabilities of glass.
So let's look ahead then to the future of these.
Sure.
Faster speeds, cloud processing. I mean, there's articles that have been written about glass about it's the future of recording everything 24/7, and then you can just go back and look at the part of your day that you missed.
I think if I recorded everything, my battery died about like lunchtime.
Well, now,
Right.
but not forever. So, what do you see as a use of this in the future? Maybe something that you wish it already had, or how will it change as more people have it and as the capabilities improve?
There's actually an app that people have been working on. It was one of the first apps that I actually remember seeing for glass. It was an app called Blue. What it does is when you're within a geolocation area around like a baseball park, it would start feeding you baseball stats like the live pitch by pitch. It feeds you information about the game. So when you're at the game, you can actually focus on the game and it just gives you live information. And I think that's probably going to be, this is a very small use case for it, but things that give you more immediate information about your surroundings. Say you go downtown all the time, but you don't know what's going on downtown. You could just be walking the streets of like downtown Orlando and glass could pop up, hey, there's an event nearby that's similar to things that you have searched for before because Google knows everything about your life. So you might have an interest in this and things that you might not know were going around you before. You would know that these things are going around. So giving you more, I think, as they get more data and as Google Now improves because it uses Google Now a lot for a lot of those recommendations, it can start giving you more real-time information about things that are going around you to help you do more things in your life. So,
yeah, I think there's two sides of it. Like we were talking about what we wanted to talk about earlier, and there's two sides of this conversation, and that's the consumer side and there's the industry side. So a lot of the things that you see glass making news for, like right now, are things like a firefighter inventing an app so you can get real-time statistics on a building that he's running into that is on fire. You need your hands available to handle everything in that. You can't be messing around with like a blueprint or anything like that. And that's something that's like potentially life-saving. You have a surgeon that builds an app to get like vitals for the patient, so that's in his face as he's operating and that kind of thing. So there's the utility side, and I think that there's a lot of room for expansion on the utility side of things. I think a lot of people see it as like a cell phone replacement rather than, as Celey was saying earlier, a life enhancement. So I think the real applications in the future are going to be like ways that it can make things better for you. Not having to wear a watch. That's something that cell phones did, and now a wearable could take it to a next level. We all stopped wearing watches because they were only watches. And what's the new thing that everybody wants to see Apple make? A freaking watch, right? It's really weird. So I think that that's part of it, though, is that the limitations of old technology transitioning into what can happen and expanding on what you do. The difference between an old watch and a new wearable watch is basically how it enhances other aspects of your life. From the consumer side, I think people need to stop thinking about wearables as cell phones because they're not. They're just limited controls. You can do certain things on them, and they make certain things really great, but they don't enhance. Like web browsing on this thing, I'll just be honest, kind of sucks. It's not
pretty bad.
It's not built for that. And if you ever Google just released, I think it was yesterday morning, was it? I guess I can say it. I'm on camera. But don't be a glass hole. You guys seen that? Where it's like. There's basically rules for us on what we can and can't do because people are getting headaches. Well, it's because they're trying to read an entire website on a 320 pixel screen. It's like, takes forever. And
While staring at
yeah,
the
while
sun
staring
or-
at the sun. It's not a good idea. So, I mean, I think that that's where the future of this device comes is as they start to open up the platform and they start to allow developers to get creative with things and access to more tools, you're going to be able to see this transition into more life enhancement rather than cell phone replacement. And I think that that's a key thing to think about.
So if your example holds and you're fed data based on your search history and your Google profile and potentially other profiles like Facebook, so that actually means that in any given area of town, you're going to experience it differently than someone else. So
Maybe not.
what
even
are the
somebody else, but
implications?
even different than you've experienced it before.
Well, right. And so what are the implications for people that are designing, venues, like we teach here, architects? Are you going to have to assume that the way a space is designed and thought out is going to be different because I have my own data with me and it's going to create either an overlay or some other set of information?
I mean, you'll see people having more. I think you could have more unique features on like outsides of buildings and stuff, so that it's easier to do an image recognition of it. If people know that you can look around and get more information about your surroundings, it's easier to get more information if you have something that's uniquely identifiable.
Okay.
I think QR codes might be a good example of that. You guys all familiar with QR codes, right? It's like they're vehicles for a cell phone to get to a web page. That's really what they are. So, you're going to start to see cues being put into environments where it triggers something in a wearable and then brings up additional information. I could see it being used in like a zoo or something like that, where like, you go to an exhibit and you're looking at an animal and, instead of having that little placard that everybody's trying to crowd around
Right.
to read, the whole exhibit has some kind of cue in it and it just starts showing on
Well,
your
there's actually a company that got a patent on already image recognition, so you can turn anything into a QR code.
right.
So you just stare at the billboard, and the billboard itself is the QR code.
Yeah, and I think like that's what I'm talking about usability. They're going to have to find new ways of control that's not like directly human interaction, but just passive in terms of what you do in life.
And we were actually just talking about this yesterday. We were playing around with the little Bluetooth beacons that you can tag information in these little Bluetooth beacons, and then when you get close to them, it'll pop up information on your device about what this beacon is what the information on the beacon is. So you're using them. What's it? National Geographic that's using them?
Yeah,
National Geographic is using these in museums, so that when you get close to a museum exhibit, the Bluetooth beacon will then feed you information to your phone app about more information about this exhibit, what you're looking at, some more history about it, more than they can put on that little placard in front of you that like 3 people can crowd around and read. You can do the same thing with wearables. So if you have these Bluetooth beacons, because this is a Bluetooth headset, you can just feed information to a wearable like this. So when I get close, it's like, oh, well, this is the exhibit and this is some information about it. I mean, obviously they'd have to tailor it to be less information so you're not reading like that entire web page on this little tiny screen. But I mean, it's a way to give you more information about things that are around you just by like QR codes is one way to do it, but you have to look at those. These Bluetooth beacons could be, you can get near it. If you're not exactly looking at it, you could draw your attention to something else in the space.
Well, you don't even necessarily need less information. The nice thing about wearables and glass specifically is
Well, not less, more condensed
I could put a YouTube video on it. I could have information out there, and I could watch a video, and that's something that you can't really have at a zoo or any kind of an exhibit now, because you enter and you're part of a shared space. So one of the things that's nice about glass is that I have my own space. It's right here on my head. I have my own screen, and I could have 50 other people standing right next to me looking at the same thing, and we all have our own space where we can consume this information. So with this beacon, I can trigger the video to play, and I could have all that same information, but even better, because now it's interactive. Now it's visual, it's audio, and I can see it, and it's there, and I don't have to worry about it interrupting his life or her life, because it's just for me. And I think that that's part of what I'm trying to talk about. I keep going back to this, but it's part of like that just learning curve of how these things can enhance what we do rather than replace it. It's thinking about things just slightly differently in a different way. And that's where the real power of devices like this come out, I think.
So let's talk about then how we use this in education,
Okay.
or potentially could. Is it a benefit because I have my hands free, I have instant access to information on my head, or is it just more cheating? Are we entering a stage where cheating actually itself might be just considered an outdated concept, because I'm just going to walk around with all the world's information up next to my head, and it's a matter of I need to be able to have an entirely different way of learning that and testing for it, and
I know Kung Fu. Yeah, that's a great question, actually. When we first thought about education with Google Glass as an educator, what I thought about is things like, again, back to the enhancement thing, like I have my slides up on the screen, but I have my notes in front of me. So I'm able to walk around and lecture and see things without having to like look down at a tablet or go over to a laptop or whatever, and I can transition through slides or whatever, that kind of thing. I also thought about a way for like students to ask questions. You have, in education, there's an issue where students are different learning styles, and some students are very introverted. Some students do not like to be called out on things. And if there was some kind of interactive quiz or whatever where you can ask a certain student a question, it would show up, and they could ask you a question, and it would show up on your screen. So you could say, oh, okay, someone asked the question. They don't have to raise their hand. They don't have to call themselves out.
You don't even have to point out that as a question. You can just integrate it right into whatever you're lecturing.
Exactly. So there are tools like that allow people to communicate a little bit differently, which I think is powerful. As far as the peer-to-peer thing, plagiarism is a huge issue. Copyright infringement, cheating, however you want to say that, and it gets, I don't know if you want to call it worse or not, it just gets more prolific when you have access to the world on a device now, right? So maybe the question isn't, is it cheating? It's what are we doing so that the device is actually enhancing the learning so they don't have to. So it's, okay, can I integrate this somehow to where maybe if I'm doing, and I'm trying to get away from the developer thing, if I'm teaching wood shop, I can have the instruction. I'd love IKEA to give me an instruction manual for how to build this thing so I don't have to go back to that little piece of paper every 3 seconds. But
no one's going to understand IKEA.
Right.
That'll never happen.
The little pictures of the guy all sad because he broke the board, that's me. I do that. But I do think that there are ways to think about kind of that human-computer interaction and the change in interfacing with data, and I think that's a big part of it. You guys remember the Samsung had a commercial where they were doing like the whole baby changing diaper thing? Did you guys see that at all? Where it was like guys trying to change his baby, and he's doing or swaddle, I guess, and he does the one step and has to go back and look at his phone, and his baby's getting all mad and throwing it. So, but it paused it then so that he could stay continuous with the process. I think that kind of thing, where your gradual delivery of media, gradual delivery of things becomes more possible with a wearable device.
So you can wear glass to learn how to change your baby's diaper.
Yes, absolutely.
That's good.
I have a child. It is a valuable skill.
Good for you. I think we're ready for questions.
That's probably a good time.
Any final thoughts before we get to questions on what you would like the audience to kind of take with them about glass?
Some of you might have a question about, originally we were going to have a panelist up here from Google. Contractual obligations kind of prevented that from happening, but they were kind enough to sit down with us prior to the panel, so we do have a lot of information to share with you if you have questions, and that kind of thing. But again,
I think just lastly then, how do people get involved with the Explorer program is a common question we're going to get. So
just knock that one out.
Let's go through that.
Yeah, if you go back to the website for a second.
Google.com/glass.
Yeah, it's basically google.com/glasses. There's also the videos that we watched here are on the website, as well as some other Explorer stories that are on here. So I would encourage you guys, if you're interested in it and you haven't yet, check those things out. But there is a link up at the top for how to get one, and it's just a basic form. Now, there's a couple things that you need to know about signing up for the program. Number one, it's still a early release, prototype, beta, whatever you want to call it, program. So the devices are pretty pricey. They're currently $1,500. It comes with the device, the charger, the bag that he's got here, the headset, and also the sunglasses, which attach into it. So it has all that stuff. But the real power of the program is being able to contribute back to the community, right? Being part of the discussion on how this discussion that we're having now is how ultimately do we shape this device and the technology moving forward. Originally, it was pretty restricted. It started off, I think the numbers that we were given it started off with 1,500 people, and then they released it to a Twitter group at Google I/O, and that was about 8,000 people, and it has grown significantly since then, and they're starting to allow people to invite other people. and they've opened up a lot of slots. So, if you go and apply and you're serious about it, the chances of getting into the program are actually pretty decent now, and you should hear back relatively quickly. So it's not as restricted as it once was, and it's not like you're just kind of throwing a pie in the sky for nothing. If you're serious about it, I would go apply, and there's a good chance that you'll get an invite. Make sure that you take the time to fill out the form, and why you want to be a part of it. And I think you used to have to go to like a launch party in New York or San Francisco, or there's one other place I can't remember. But you used to have to go to a launch party to get it, but they will actually ship it to you now as long as you're a United States resident. They'll ship it to your house for free, and then you can go, like the next time you're in New York, you can go and stop by one of the headquarters and do the glass demos and that kind of thing.
Yeah. And they also now have prescription and fashion frames.
Yes, they do.
I'm not making that up.
No.
Hi, how you doing? My name is Joe. I'm in a computer animation program right now. I've been in about a year and a half. And I used to work in law enforcement, so I'm wondering, is there an application, or do they foresee a future use for that, like locating people, like they're trying to look for a bad guy in a warehouse and, to keep them safe. A lot of times we're trying to use, the old school method of the flashlight to try and find people. Well, it gives you away. Maybe like heat recognition, like detecting bodies. Even firemen can use that, finding a body in the smoke, through the smoke, Can it detect infrared at this time? Do they see that coming down the pipe?
It can't right now. I don't know if that's something that they're going to add down the road. I mean, I know most cell phones don't do that.
When you're looking at hardware construction, infrared camera is such a small subset of the need for the device. But because it's such an integrated device, law enforcement could very easily build an infrared scanner for a building and pipe that data into the device. So you wouldn't actually need the infrared on the device itself to use that. And that would be very similar to the firefighters. I don't know if you've seen that, but these firefighters did this feed where it would actually send blueprints to it, so they can actually navigate a building through smoke and flames when they can't actually see anything, but it's right there in their face. So I definitely could see something like that happening with it and being very viable. Yeah.
I think the other thing you're going to see is that maybe it won't be on Google Glass as the brand Google Glass, but the processor that's in there is still this big. The battery is still there. All the parts are there. So something specialized like law enforcement, there'd be no reason that a company that's not already in infrared couldn't eventually apply this and then just use open source software and hire their own developers to do it. It's a good idea, and it probably would be specialized enough that, especially for safety reasons and such, that it would probably not be Google Glass per se, but it would be something that looks just like it.
And there are other applications for law enforcement. I know that back when it first came out, they were talking about this could be a supplemental device for people doing traffic stops. I mean, they have the dash cams right now, but they don't always catch everything. So to keep the reports of police brutality or anything like that down, you can actually have a wearable that would record the entire traffic stop, the entire interaction with the suspect or whoever. So it would give that layer of transparency, like this is exactly what happened from the officer's point of view. This way they can't say, well, from where I saw, he had a knife or something. It's like, well, we didn't catch that on a dash cam. You can see exactly what the officer saw.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It would also logically just allow a department to treat the entire staff as drones. Really? I mean, we're going to look through all of the eyes we have on the street and have a second set of eyes looking. So, I mean, that seems perfectly plausible.
We had the dash cams and the mics at all times. So anytime we would activate our lights or interact with someone, that it would automatically kick on. So they'd have at least an audio recording. But if you weren't in front of that camera, like you said, they don't see what's happening. So it's a blessing, and sometimes it's a curse. It just depends on what kind of a person you're dealing with, or what kind of an officer you are. So, but as far as like finding people for a safety thing, those are the things that I was thinking of. Like find somebody, you're trying to find that bad guy without having to put yourself in danger. How could they do that? So
Definitely.
yeah.
Thank you.
And like
Good question.
like he said about the drone thing too, is like it's a supplemental to like street mounted cams as well. So because you have all your eyes on the street and you have the mounted street cams. So
Good question.
Hi, my name is Nicholas Perez, and I'm a film student. My question is that have you heard that the Google Glasses has any problem understanding different accents or another languages?
Meet me outside. We'll try it. I haven't heard that specifically, but I do know that the Explorer program is rather limited to the United States. So accent-wise with a different language, maybe not, but I do know that Google has very excellent translation software. They have both visual and audio translation software. So there's actually an app for it right now where if there's a sign in another language, I could just look at it and it'll overlay English on top of it for me, who has very limited in their communication skills in other languages. But if you want to try it with your accent, I'm more than welcome to let you try it on, and we can see if it understands you.
It's also good to note that the translation isn't actually done on the device. Like, you can't actually do any of the voice transcribing unless you have some kind of network connection. So it uses the Google Voice transcribing, and for translation is Google Translate. So it's not so much can Glass do it, it's can the Google service that's powering it do it.
Right, it's cloud-based.
Hello, I'm Devin Castanet, film program. My question has to do with the voice recognition itself. Kind of ties in a little bit with what he was saying. I worked for Apple for a long time, so I know a lot about their products. And something as far as they've always tried to push voice recognition pretty hard. The thing with Siri, though, like, I personally have never really been able to get into it because either lag time or just doesn't understand what you're saying. So you get discouraged and you're like, let me just do it on my own. Can you talk a little bit about the performance itself of Google Glass as far as not really having those kind of hiccups?
Well, there are a set of local built-in commands, so like take a picture, record a video. Those are all built in. Those do happen on the device, and they're instant for the voice recognition. For any of the other commands, so when you're speaking somebody's name or you're trying to transcribe a text message, the voice recognition is all dependent on how good your internet connection is. When I'm walking around, because it's tethered to my phone on LTE, it works fantastic. If I'm at Wi-Fi at my house on Bright House, it's awful. So it all really comes down to...
They're not sponsoring this, are they?
But it really comes down to the performance of it is based off of how strong your internet connection is, because it will record you, it does the translation on the cloud service, and then it comes back to your device.
Yeah, Google offloaded a lot of their voice transcribing onto devices with the latest Android builds. So a lot of the translation actually does happen on the device even before it goes out to the network. But for things like, usually when people have issues with audio transcribing, it's because of a contextual issue. Like, it heard a word, but it doesn't fit in with a sentence, kind of a thing. So Google's contextual translation is actually pretty good. Do you have an iPhone or an Android? An iPhone, yeah. So I've noticed that a lot with Siri. We'll have two side by side and we'll compare them. And a lot of times where Google shines is that contextual transcribing, where that's where the cloud computing comes in, and why if you have a bad internet connection, it doesn't work the same. And again, this is all part of this whole, when I was in college, cell phones were just coming out, and now I have a quad-core processor in my pocket. That's insane, So I think over time, those kind of things are going to go by the wayside, and we just have to look forward on that kind of thing.
Is there a problem, though, with background, with people speaking over you?
I'm actually...
You're just talking out in the open.
I'm actually quite surprised at how well it does this, like with background noise. That said, you can get trolled with Google Glass. I got trolled pretty bad. Somebody was asking me how it works, and I went, "Okay, Google," and he searched for something pretty vile because he just shouted it really loud right at my face. And it was like, "Okay, I'll search for that." I'm like, no. But yeah, it is actually that's how good the mic is that you can get me. So it does pretty well.
In a crowded room, it does pick up pretty well, and if it's your voice. Unless you have somebody, if he was right here trying to say something really loudly to me, it might pick him up. But if you're in a crowded room with lots of music, it could actually pick you up pretty well. So,
thank you.
Thanks.
I'm Philip Tiarina. I'm in the recording arts degree. And we're in a generation now where science fiction is finally merging with reality. And it's becoming to the point where everything is being outdated very quickly. And they have smart contact lenses now that are going to be into production pretty soon. So how long do you expect Google Glass to compete with something even more wearable than what it already is?
I'm pretty sure Google has invested into that smart contact lens technology.
You're talking about the contact lenses that measure your glucose levels and stuff? And that was actually, I believe, a Google investment. So
no, there's another company, I think it's a Swedish-based company that's actually been pushing them more into production. And they're supposed to do what Google Glass does plus more.
There's always a continuum. I mean, it's going to be competing with a lot of different wearables, but there's still going to be people 20 years from now that will have never tried any of them.
Well,
so you're still going to have them.
I think it goes back to the privacy thing too, like smart contact lenses and that kind of thing. That's a little bit more covert. The thing with wearables, though, in general, I'm not worried about competition because that's what drives the industry forward. If Android wasn't around, iOS wouldn't be improving. If iOS wasn't around, Android wouldn't be improving. So there's got to be something to push the envelope. It's a healthy symbiosis between the companies. The one thing I always tell students when it comes to like where to invest their time in development is you invest your time in development and your ability to learn. That's the only thing to invest your time in. You don't invest your time in how to use Pro Tools or how to use Eclipse or how to use Xcode, because if you do that, you're not going to have a job in 10 years because it's just that. It's always something that's going to be pushing it forward. So when you're learning, you got to learn how to teach yourself and learn how to like the core fundamentals that you can build upon, because that's what's actually going to get you through. So one of the things with Android is it's built off of, it uses Java as a runtime language. So it's like, okay, well, I take that language. That doesn't mean that I learned that in college or high school. There wasn't even coding really in high school when I went to, so it's like, you just got to always be on top of things and able to translate what you know into what you need to know in the future.
Yeah, I mean, and this isn't even out to the mass public yet, and it's already a version 2. So, I mean, they're always improving it. But it could be on a version 5 before they ever even release it to the public. I mean, it's always going to keep getting better. So competition helps them to need to get better. So,
thanks.
Hello, my name is Enrique Di Ballo. I'm in web. My question is more about apps. How do apps are gonna monetize? By the user's database or by ads, which is gonna be tricky.
Yeah, right now, like we said, you can't actually charge for the apps. In the future, are you going to be able to? I'd imagine you will, because I can't imagine an app ecosystem where you just flat out can't charge for apps. Or somebody will come up with a hack for it that you can somehow charge somehow. But the apps that are out there now, like I said, you got a lot of news source type apps like Facebook. You have CNN, various recipes, that kind of thing. There's a lot of cool kind of back-end utility apps like that, and their revenue is from like brand recognition and subscription. So, Facebook wants users. So, if I'm on Facebook, then when I go to Facebook on the web later, I get a piece of advertising or they collect my data, and data is worth money. That's what Google's in business for. Google's a data company. That's what they are. So it's hard to answer that question just because there isn't really a precedent for it yet. But the apps that are out there now are largely data collection apps. They're trying to figure out, that's their revenue strategy for them is they're getting data. They're finding out how people are using things, what people are using, what they're searching for, what they're reading, and they're using that data to power other services. On the back
It's pretty easy to project, though, that in different industries it'll follow the same pattern as other software. I mean, if you're doing something that's for surgeons, it's going to be $10,000 a license at least, and that's the cost of doing business. If you're doing something that's a fitness app, so that I can follow my workout on glass while my hands are free to lift weights,
which they actually have with Strava.
Yeah. Right. So, I mean, that sort of thing logically would be something somebody would pay for. Other things, like Facebook, they'll be happy to put out an app because it's more data that they're collecting. It's more uploads. It's more engagement. It's more stuff they can add ads to, through their services. So I think all the models that you already see in smartphones are going to apply. It's just it hasn't been worked out when or how. And it's going to have to reach the public first. I mean, as much as there's a cool factor, 20 or 50 or 100,000 devices is not enough to get someone's attention if you're at Facebook or except as purely a technical experiment. And right now they're at the technical experiment phase. So as it gets to mass production and as these aren't going to be $1,500, obviously, when the public is buying them, then you'll see plenty of business models shake out.
Hi, I'm Dawnette, film. With Google being able to text, or I think you said call people, do you have to get like a data plan, or does it work with your phone carrier, or is Google going to become the new like AT&T, Verizon, Sprint?
Well,
go ahead.
So right now you can use Google Hangouts to send not SMS message, not actual text message, but you can talk to people through Google Hangouts on any kind of data connection, Wi-Fi, or your cellular connection. Otherwise, it pairs with your phone to do text messaging and calling. because it doesn't actually have a cell radio in it, so it can't actually do phone calls and text messages by itself.
It'll connect to both, like any phone with a Bluetooth connection. Right now, they have an official app for both iOS and Android, though, so you don't even have to have like an Android phone. You can use an iPhone if you'd like to with it, which is pretty cool. That's one thing Google's always been good at, is opening technology to multiple platforms and that kind of stuff. But it does use your cell network to send text messages and make non-Hangout calls.
Yeah.
But it has Skype too. Skype's an app on it. So.
Hi, my name is Josh Ketchum, and I'm in the mobile dev program.
Yay, one of our people.
My question is, we've seen how Google Glass can be applied to different industries, and what I was wondering is, do you see Glass exploding into a specific industry more than others, or is it kind of like a more general application, or that can be applied to everything?
We were talking about this before. I mean, I don't see a particular industry that would need it more than any other. Any industry where where you do a lot of work with your hands, where you need to have your hands freed up to do other things, it could be useful in that industry. But I can't think of one in particular where this is going to be the industry that needs to have Google Glass.
Yeah, I mean, we talked, like that. I don't see him in here. The guy with the police app. Like that's a really cool idea. Yeah, so that's a really cool idea. The firefighter app, the surgeon app, those are all different industries where people need to use their hands. But at the same time, I record my daughter's concerts at school with it so that I can actually watch. Because nothing bothers me more than the person holding an iPad in the front row.
And taking pictures on an iPad.
So like, it allows me to watch and enjoy that while recording. So there's the cataloging visual aspects of it on the consumer side. On the industry side, there's all the kind of practical utility and enhancement things. So I don't think it's going to get narrowed down into one thing. We even saw a video on how somebody used it in their recording arts background. So I think it's universally applicable, but it's one of those things that has to mature, and people are going to have to get used to the different interactions and capabilities and enhancements that it offers. So, thanks.
All right, so if there's no other student questions, we'll toss back to you for the wrap-up.
All right, great.
And we'll wrap.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for coming, everybody. And like I said, Celey and I will be around. And we work here. So if you ever run into us and you want a demo or something like that, just let us know, and we're more than happy to let you guys see it out. All right.
Thanks
for coming.